Hello, I'm Yegor Prikazuk, and this is the user guide of SCOPE, Soil Canopy Observation of Photochemistry and Energy Fluxes model. In this recording, we are going to talk about vertical profiles, and we're still going to talk about workspace output because it doesn't really matter if set options calculate vertical profiles are 1 or 0. The output is only available in the workspace. We don't output it. And regarding workspace output, we are going to talk about scalar profiles of radiation and leaf properties, and also about spectral profiles. What I expect you have already done is you went to our GitHub and you downloaded the model with download zip. After that, you have unzipped the file, and now you can navigate to Scope Master, and you see these files. Also, of course, you have MATLAB, which would normally start with double click of scope. See that the scope is open and we run it for the first time. The first run has 100 simulations, and hopefully you get the same message that the output is the same as in the verification dataset, which means we are good to go. What I also expect you to do is to find our documentation. The link is directly in the README. In the documentation, what I'm talking about are in model capabilities, vertical profiles, and this very little, but still gives an idea that, for example, canopy temperature based on the height in the canopy of every leaf layer is different, and the weighted sum of these temperatures is we can refer to vertical profile in the canopy. We are going to use a single run, so everything is controlled. In order to do that, we go to input and adjust 3 files, starting from set options. Here we just want to remove verify option. As I said, if we enable or disable, it doesn't matter, so we don't do anything. We just save it, make sure that we have single RR simulations. File names, we may or may not change our file name in this column because we are not going to look in the output files anyway. We are going to use the workspace output. Still, it's a good practice to know that file names are there. And of course, one folder back, set parameter file names, we have to say that we want to use input data default instead of input data lady hypercube. Save it, close it, go to scope, run it. This is normal simulation. It will run very fast. Then I will plot profiles with the plotting functions. We're starting from scalars. So we have to imagine a situation like this. So if this is our canopy, if we put sensors at different heights of the canopy, and the heights are denoted here as 0, and the top of the canopy XL equals 0, and the bottom of canopy is XL minus 1. This is soil layer. So if we put sensors and we measure temperature, humidity, radiation at different heights, we will see something that we see similarly in these figures. We start with where we take these profiles from. We have a gap probability fraction. So we have it in 2 directions. One is solar direction, so gap.ps is the sunlit leaves. And the top of canopy, here is top of canopy 0, here is bottom minus 1. The top of canopy, the probability of finding sunlit leaves is maximal, almost 1. At the bottom of canopy, the probability of finding leaf that receives direct sunlight is quite low, but still 20%. So the probability of the leaf being shaded is 1 minus the gap PS, so it's this one. And the fluxes that we're observing here is, for example, absolute par. They are in structure RUT, and PNU is for sunlit, the PNH is for shaded. We take the second letter of the respective names. And in yellow is the profile that you would measure with the sensor if you put par sensor. So on top of canopy, the A par is maximal, and closer to the bottom is minimal. And it's roughly same for shaded leaves and for sunlit leaves. Shortwave net radiation follows similar pattern, lower we go in canopy, the lower net radiation, there's less light. But interesting, thermal net radiation follows opposite pattern, because the leaves on top, they emit more radiation, and they also receive less radiation because it's thermal. It's in the domain above solar light. They receive only radiation from the atmosphere. We'll see it in a minute. But closer to the bottom, they also receive radiation from neighboring leaves. That's why the net radiation is negative, very negative. Top and then neutral, almost around zero at the bottom, because it's a thermal radiation. Now let's look at the leaf output. Leaf layers, they are stored in two structures that are called BSH for shaded and BSU for sunlit. Leaves, for example, this is gross photosynthesis. It goes down because the VC max, the carboxylation capacity, goes down due to extinction coefficient and due to temperature correction, because temperature of the leaf increases. But actually it increases to the optimum value, which is around 25 here. So the VC max should increase, but it decreases because of the extinction coefficient. Also, what we see here, the relative humidity decreases and stomatal conductance also decreases. This is an interesting output eta. It's related to solar-induced fluorescence. Is the steady-state fluorescence normalized to the dark adapted state? Very interesting profile that currently we are checking. And the temperatures are a bit more tricky, because when we combine temperatures, we cannot just sum them up or average them. So these temperatures are radiative. They are fitted to match outgoing one-wave radiation. In the power of 4, we can sum them and then take a root of the power 4. All right, that was what scalars are concerned. The plotting is very easy, but again, it's a long script for visualization purposes. Now, before going to radiation, I would like to remind you that there are two components of radiation. There is direct component that's illustrated here as an arrow, and there is diffuse component that is illustrated here as a hemisphere. So solar light has direct component and diffuse component, and we track both separately in scope and in observation direction. We also have the direct light, it goes directly to the observer, and we have light that goes, a diffuse light that goes everywhere in all directions, hemispherical. In mathematical terms, this looks like that. So scope is a multi-layer, multi-leaf canopy. These are leaves of different orientations. We go from 0, top of canopy, to -1, the bottom of canopy, and we track 4 fluxes. The scope radiative transfer is inherited from SAIL, which is a 4-stream radiative transfer. First stream is direct solar light, the arrow here. The second stream is diffuse downward light. It's this golden hemisphere. The third stream is the diffuse upward, the green hemisphere. And the last stream is the upward direct, in the direction of observation. Well, now let's see how the profiles of those radiations look like. Again, I plot all the scripts. And what we see at the top of canopy, we have a structure RAT that was covered in the previous module. So if you're interested in what is inside this structure, you can click here and search in the documentation and see which exactly fields are there, and the fields that have dimensions of 60 layers, for example, are of our interest now. So if I go here at top of canopy, the downwelling diffuse radiation from sun and the atmosphere looks like that. While it passes through the canopy to the bottom, we will see that if we put sensor at the bottom of the canopy, the soil, for example, we will see this profile of radiation. That's what we call E minus. This is computed inside RTMO. If we look at upwelling radiation, for example, if we, at the bottom, if we put sensor but downwards facing soil, so from the soil we will see that this amount of radiation red goes up, and if we put a sensor at the top of the canopy, we will see this amount of diffuse radiation, E plus rad.E blue underscore. This is also computed in RTMO. In addition to that, we have thermal radiation, thermal emitted radiation, that also goes down, but at top, nothing enters the canopy from the top, because we only talk about emitted radiation by canopy, but by the bottom, we reach around 30 microwatts per square meter per micrometer at the wavelength of 10 micrometers. They are computed either in RTMT Stefan Boltzmann or RTMT Planck. And again, when we propagate this from the bottom of the canopy towards the top, a little bit gets absorbed, but mostly it's still the same 30 microwatts per square meter per micrometer at 10 micrometers are lifted from the canopy. So we can do it for every layer in the model. Here I sum both optical component and thermal component together, and then we can see this beautiful profile from top to bottom of the canopy. It's downwelling diffuse radiation, and then we see it again from bottom to the top of canopy. It's upwelling diffuse radiation. So that would theoretically be captured by sensor if we put any sensor there. An interesting part of scope output is that we can also track the fate of light. Here the top picture is the same as was presented one figure below, but at the bottom I added also direct solar flux. The story goes like this. When direct flux hits the surface, it's getting reflected either forward or backward and is becoming diffuse. So in fact, this red line here, the downwelling diffuse radiation, is forward. It is the sum of diffuse light that came from the sun and was going down towards the last layer, towards the soil. And this yellow part of it is the direct solar light that was reflected in forward direction. So it's like forward scattering is called. So it reached the bottom of the soil. Here, the same story, but we're talking about the top in this case. So it's a sum of E blue D, which is diffuse radiation that went down, was reflected and went up, and the direct radiation that went down and was backscattered from the leaves and went to the sensor. So this is the result of forward scattering of the direct radiation, and this is the result of backscattering, or typical reflectors of the direct radiation. The partitioning between direct and diffuse radiation is done in scope in accordance with the default atmospheric profile, where it's around 50-50 contribution of direct and diffuse light to the total solar spectrum. In order to make the picture complete, let's enable option calculate vertical profiles and see what it does. For that, we have to see that now we have a structure called profiles, but it's empty. It's a structure with no fields. However, if we, in set options, enable the option calculate vertical profiles, and we save, close, and run, so now we see that profiles structure is not empty. There are 3 layers, and these numbers are exactly the same as the ones I was plotting in the first graph. So if I go down here, the PN1D is the weighted sum of PNU and PNH weighted by the PS, by the gap fraction. That's it. Now you know not only how scope computes vertical profiles, but also which four streams of radiation we trace. See you in the next videos.